Is it possible for you to have a period without ever having ovulated that month? Well, yes and no, and here's why. Gosh, that's helpful. Hello lovelies, and welcome to another one of my videos in which we'll be talking about whether it's possible for you to be having a period without ever having ovulated. When you have fertility concerns and you visit your doctor, unfortunately 9 out of 10 times you'll be told that you are ovulating regularly if you're having your period regularly. And you know what? That isn't actually the case. I recently got this question from one of you called Megabella 2013 on a video where I explain how it's possible for you to have multiple positive ovulation tests in a cycle. And she asks, how is a period possible if you haven't ovulated? Well, thanks Megabella for asking, and here's the video that I promised you. So remember in the beginning of the video, I said that yes and no, it's possible for you to have a period when you haven't actually ovulated. This is the reason. Technically, if you haven't ovulated, so you had an anovulatory cycle, you are not really experiencing a period. This is technically called a breakthrough bleeding. I have explained in other videos how the cycle works and which hormones are involved, but to answer this question properly, I need to give you a recap. So remember that in the first half of your cycle, so from your period until ovulation, estrogen is dominant. And what estrogen does, it thickens the lining of your uterus. As estrogen goes up, the anterior pituitary gland is triggered to also start releasing LH, luteinizing hormone. And LH is the one that we test with ovulation tests because when that's high enough, that is when we ovulate. So if you're able to pick up on an ovulation test that LH is spiking, you know that you'll almost be ovulating, and that's the time to get busy if you're trying to conceive. So once LH has spiked, you ovulate, and what is left behind in your ovary is a little sac called the corpus luteum. And the corpus luteum produces progesterone. And progesterone is dominant in the second half of your cycle. So progesterone in your second half of your cycle is important because it maintains the uterine lining and it prevents you from having a flow. This is also the case when you're pregnant. Progesterone stays high the entire pregnancy so that you don't have your flow and baby comes out before it's ready. However, and I think this is made in such a cool way, at the end of a pregnancy, the baby is in the uterus, but it kind of gets squashed and it's tight because it's getting too big. So what it then does, it produces stress hormones because it's stressed out, and those stress hormones actually tell our body to reduce the progesterone production. And then as progesterone drops, your uterus starts to contract and baby comes out. The same thing is happening at the end of your cycle if you are not pregnant. The corpus luteum that is producing the progesterone before placenta can take over will start to shrivel down, and as it shrivels down, progesterone starts to drop naturally, and that is when your flow starts. Now back to what I said about you not really having a period if you haven't ovulated, but technically having a breakthrough bleeding. The reason for this is this entire cycle I just described doesn't happen because there is no ovulation. So there is no production of progesterone, so there is no progesterone drop and then the flow starting. So what is happening then is what you're wondering, right? Well, estrogen keeps being produced and the uterine lining keeps being built up, but then progesterone doesn't come into the picture to maintain the lining. So eventually the body's just like, I guess we'll just let go. And that's actually really good because you don't want that uterine lining to keep building up and building up and building up. We need the shedding of that uterine lining to keep it nice and fresh in case you do ovulate and then conceive, right? So the best way for you to know if you're ovulating is through charting your cycle. You need to take your temperature to see if your temperature goes up under the influence of progesterone to be able to pinpoint if you ovulated at all or not. You cannot rely on the fact that you have a regular period or that you have a period at all. So the best way and the easiest way for you to get started with that is if you sign up to my free fertility charting course. I wrote this email series to teach you in a few easy lessons how you can get started to chart. and how you can interpret it, of course, because you want to understand when you ovulated, if you ovulated, and you want to know in advance of ovulation when your fertile window opens so you can make good use of it with hubby and get started with trying to make that baby, right? The cool thing about charting is that not only will you be able to see if you ovulated or not, but if you're ovulating late because of stress perhaps, because that can actually prevent you from ovulating or make you ovulate later, then you can still catch that egg even if that egg doesn't jump until later in your cycle. I absolutely love being able to answer your questions. So if you have a question like Megabella did, then make sure to write it in the comments. I do try to get back to everyone as long as I'm able to do that, and otherwise I will collect them and make videos just like this one. How would you like to have your question answered in a video like this? So if you like this video, I would love for you to like it because it really encourages me. I get excited with every like that I get because I know that it hit home with somebody. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet and you're interested in understanding your fertility and boosting your fertility naturally, what are you waiting for? Subscribe and make sure to also hit the notification bell so that YouTube lets you know the moment that I upload new content, and that is every Thursday. So in the meantime, see you in the next video. Bye!